back into the research, but I was trained by a friend and mentor of ours, Doc John, who came across this breath to really allow people to drop in and get very present. It's tricky. It's counterintuitive, but once you get it, you can do one of these breaths, a single breath, and rewire the hormonal cascade that's happening in your body from cortisol and move it into oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. It was discovered they were doing high altitude training for runners, and they were trying to find they were playing with all these different breaths to be like, how do we get the better stamina? How do we improve running times? And so they're trying all these breaths, and they've got the runners all hooked up with all the stuff to find out what's going on in their system. And they tried this breath, and it didn't do anything to affect their performance. But what they realized was it takes the vagus nerve pathway and immediately takes all the serotonin, oxytocin, all this sort of stuff, using the vagus nerve to bypass the blood-brain barrier and wash the brain in oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and instantly reverse like a cortisol loop. And it's paradoxical breath. So we could just try it. So obviously,
anyone who's listening, it took me a year to get this breath. Ian got it in one try. So don't feel bad if you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. So the idea here is to do an in-breath, inhale through the nose on a count of 5 or more. And at the top of the in-breath, don't exhale, but don't hold your breath. So this is the paradox. And I have a few tricks coaching people through this. So you can try it at home, letting your belly soften, letting your spine become soft but erect. And the extension of the inhale, it's basically you're allowing your breath, your body to absorb more of the usable prana, chi, energy available in the breath. And if you're playing with this breath, at the top of that inhale, you could, if you're like, I don't understand how to not hold my breath and not exhale, and hold your breath for just a moment at the top of that extended inhale, and then kind of take the cap off the top of the bottle without letting your lungs collapse or without pushing the air out, letting your jaw soften, your tongue soften. You can leave your mouth open. You could even hinge your neck just slightly, tipping your head back just a little bit, not to create a break in your esophagus, but just to leave the channel open. And oxygen heats up as you breathe in, so air will come out. It will escape through your mouth and through your nose, and it's like you're pausing at the top of the inhale. And then the other image that I've used for people, because a lot of people have a hard time understanding this breath, that's been very successful, is imagine your diaphragm, this whole cavity of your upper torso, like a hydraulic. And you know, when you extend a hydraulic and there's a little bit of weight on that hydraulic, it doesn't collapse, the whole thing doesn't, but it slowly, there is a little bit of a muscular tension without holding your breath. At the top of that hydraulic pull of the diaphragm opening, bring oxygen into your lungs, release, and you will notice that your stomach comes in, your chest depresses a little, but it doesn't collapse. And in the pause, you're simply waiting. You're simply in a place of, oh, well, when does my body need the next breath? And sometimes you'll get a fight or flight experience. So if you're having
a little bit of panic,
I recommend one of two things. Either just exhale normally and begin again. And you can extend that inhale to longer than 5, 6, 7, 8 counts. And imagine your body, your lungs, as if they're what they are, in truth, a porous balloon, and the inhale doesn't stop at the end of your cilia, at the end of the capacity of your lungs, but imagine it as if the oxygen is pushing out, being absorbed, and exhaling through your legs, through your arms, through your neck, through your back. You're increasing your capacity to use more of the breath. And the other trick is at the top of that inhale is if you're not going for capacity breath, you're not taking an inhale to 100%. So if you feel that panic, another thing that you can do is just take a few more sips of air to let your body know, oh, I can breathe. It's okay. And what you don't want to do is have your body go into that fight, flight, and go into tension and more cortisol. And it can start to cycle into a thing where it feels like it's nothing but an inhale. It's an inhale with a pause. And I call it the cookie. Like when you get the breath, you'll have that feeling of the switch of the hormonal cascade to one of pleasure hormones.
You get like a little oxytocin rush.
It's like
at the
a
back
hood.
Of your head.
Yeah, some people describe it as a warm hood that kind of washes over the top of their head. And one reason why it's a main practice for me to come back into that state of remembering is it allows me to drop into diffuse awareness. So, and it's beautiful because if I'm in a conflict, I've got the little edge with Jaiya, or I'm tense about something that is going on in work, or at any moment, anytime, I can be doing this breath. Nobody knows. It's like I'm not announcing, or I'm not going into my meditation circle to relax myself. I'm just changing my breath, and conflict occurs to me as a contraction of energy, where all of a sudden we get focused on something that needs to be resolved, and then resourcefulness and sort of being able to tap into all of the strands of potentialities that exist around us all the time becomes limiting. And I'm stuck in this myopic, like, oh, this thing that's bugging me, and all the things and my life becomes that conflict in that moment. But the breath allows me to move into, I now feel the sunlight. I now feel the energies in the room. I now have a ease where I'm not tracking into the other person's or people's or situations cortisol or, anxiety, but I can feel all that